G'day guys, welcome back to Beers and Breakevens, brought to you by Bloke in a Bar. Go out, grab yourself a drop this weekend. Mid-strength dropped a couple of weeks ago. It's an absolute cracker. Rep round done and dusted now, so we're back into SuperCoach. We're going full throttle for the run home. Joined once again by my co-host, Timmy Williams. Welcome back, bro.
G'day, mate. Yeah, good to be back after a bit of a freshen up. I know we did the Beers and Breakevens podcast last week. SC Playbook had a bit of a rest to freshen up for the run home, and I know I look like a bit like a drowned rat at the moment, but I promise I'm fresh, ready to go for the weekend.
Mate, what about last week? We spoke for 25 minutes about Ryan Pappenhausen, what to do with him. We got off and we opened our phones and COVID. Fucking unbelievable.
Oh, and then we come into this week and we'll get to it later, but Bellamy playing silly buggers again and naming him on the extended bench. Like, he's clearly going to play. Like, they've said for 3 weeks he's going to play aside from the COVID hit. So come on, mate.
Yeah. So look, we will touch on Pappy today and our thoughts. But if you do want a deeper analysis on that, go back to Beers and Breakevens last week, where we spoke for 20 odd minutes there, rinse and repeat. Mate, scores ranks, we went through them last week. The last round we played, I scored 1,260. I went down 2 spots. I'm ranked 43 at the moment. Happy with that. Remind us how you're travelling.
246th, mate. So it was 1158 the prior round. So I dropped 99 spots there. Not the best week, but I thought it might have been a bigger drop, to be honest. So very happy with where I'm at. Not quite top 50 like you, mate, but closing in.
Yeah. I think we're both sitting with 14 trades. I got 14. You got 14 at the moment, going into this round, yeah. And at the moment, there's 278 points separating us, and we'll talk about round 17 soon because our tactics are very, very different heading into round 17. And I reckon Timmy will probably jump me, what do you reckon, by 100 or so maybe?
There's so much to play out in the space of the next 2 weeks and even next week's TLT, but I'm hoping I can bridge that gap. Whether or not I'll be a few short trades on the way home, I won't be short, but you'll have a few extra up your sleeve. So it's going to be tight post round 17.
It's going to be round 17 planning versus trades for the back end, and money for me. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I might have to turn to a certain Melbourne Storm halfback, but we'll talk about that very soon. Team list Tuesday. Also, guys, the group, we won't go through it. We went through it last week. Once again, if you want to hear your name spoken about and how well you're doing, go back and have a listen there. Make sure you check out who's 9th in the group too, doing very, very well there. It's me, Timmy. It's me.
It's been a long season.
It's been a long fucking season. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Crazy it took so long to get in that top 10. But anyway, Team list Tuesday. Broke yesterday. Thursday, we've got the Manly Seagulls taking on the Melbourne Storm, coming to you from Brookvale Oval. Joshy Schuster, he's still on the bench. We've got a question about him later, so we'll talk about him soon. But it's the Melbourne Storm extended that we want to talk about. Ryan Pappenhausen, we just said. Craig Bellamy playing his best silly buggers with us, fooling no one. We know that Pappy will come in, so it'll either be Idarima or Grant that drops out of this side. Personally, I think Grant's going to stay in. I think Dean Irema will drop out of this side. What do you think?
I'm with you, mate, and it might be the SuperCoach coming out of me, but just on the old eye test, watching him the last couple of rounds, I thought he's looked really good. Jeremiah has obviously got the trust of Bellamy there, and he's very loyal to his players, particularly when they're winning games, Bellamy, which is most of the time. But I think Grant stays in that team, which is fantastic for SuperCoaches should it eventuate. I'd be stunned if Pappy, he'll play. I think he'll start at fullback. There's a chance he comes off the bench, but even when he does start, I think Grant keeps his spot. Jeremiah will drop out, which Grant at 175k, round 17 coverage. Obviously, a few job security issues, even if he does get named. But yeah, he could be coming into the Cooma Stallions this week.
This is obviously Grant Anderson too. I don't know why we thought we were on first name basis with him, but Grant Anderson we're talking about, not Harry Grant, who has been named at 9 for the Melbourne Storm. If you held him during this origin period, seeing him at 9 this week and seeing Brandon Smith at 13, you'd be pretty happy with that.
You would, yeah. Whether or not that remains the same come game day, but like Grant of the Harry variety didn't play huge minutes in Origin. Was it 43 or 5 or something?
Something along those lines.
So that, and then the fact that Brandon Smith, who would be his replacement, played big minutes for the Kiwis the night before. So had Brandon Smith not played, I think Grant would be off the bench. But as it stands, good news for Harry Grant owners, those who held.
Friday, 6 p.m, we've got the Newcastle Knights taking on the Gold Coast Titans in one of the most Friday 6 p.m. games of all time. Kalen Ponga has been ruled out for the Newcastle Knights. Getting a little bit worried about KP. He's been, like we obviously mentioned it last few weeks on Bloke in a Bar, he's been banged around a little bit. It looks like he will miss this game, and he could potentially miss Origin as well, which would be very interesting. You see the domino effect there. Tex Hoy comes into fullback. Now Barnett, let's talk about him quickly. He's on the minds of a lot of SuperCoach players at the moment. Barney, he could come in and goal kick. Personally, I think people are forgetting that Adam Clune can goal kick. Jake Clifford's not far out of this side as well. Two guys that I think could goal kick in front of him. Where do you sit on Barnett? He's obviously cheap. I don't think he's a bad option, but I'm not as keen on him as the amount of messages I've received about him anyway. What are your thoughts?
I don't mind him, and I've always had a soft spot for Barnett in Supercoach because I'd rate him as a footballer. I think he's a fantastic footballer. I think he's got attacking stats in him, which is obviously so vital for a forward in Supercoach circles. So averaged from 61 to 64 the last 3 seasons in minutes of 68 to 71. This season he's 48 points per game in 61 minutes per game. So back to what looks like hopefully a bigger minute role now that he's on the edge there at the Knights. Dan Saifidi used to come back, so I don't mind him for next week. I definitely wouldn't be going this week. I want to see if he goal kicks because that'd be such a big factor going into him. But at 465k, break even 32, he could be a really, really good option, obviously for around 17. And then I say I wouldn't rush to play him in my 17 in the run home, but if he's playing 70 plus minutes, potentially 80 on that edge, which he very well may do, he can score really well and be a 65 to 70 average player. I don't mind him, but one for around 17, not this week.
Yeah, I can understand the people looking at him this way. Obviously, the Titans matchup is juicy for them. But yeah, I don't think he's one that I'm going to go. But I have been known to backflip a lot. So we'll see how we go there. Mate, this Newcastle Knights extended bench is definitely one to watch. This might be the greatest extended bench of all time. Daniel Saifidi, Heimel Hunt, Fitzy, Bradman Best, and the form player of the first 3 weeks of the competition, Jakey Clifford. Surely there will be some changes to this Knights lineup, right?
Massive, isn't it? And Dan Saifidi, Supercoach-wise, Dan Saifidi's big because what does that do to David Clemens' minutes? A lot of people are keen on him. Do they reduce it a little bit? Bradman Best, he hasn't hit his straps this year, even outside of injury Supercoach-wise, but super pod potentially. We just need the Knights to show something, wouldn't we? And I want to see the Knights produce some good footy this week before even thinking about them. But without Kalen Ponga there, you don't know, do you?
It's a tough gig. Yeah, very, very tough gig. Mate, for the Titans, Fafita, he's been named on the bench. I know he's one guy that you've sort of had on your radar the last few weeks. I want to say I'm glad he's on the bench because we'll probably get him cheaper in a couple of weeks. Knowing Fafita, we probably fucking won't. He'll probably come out and brain it off the bench. But he's going to be an interesting guy moving forward.
I'm really keen on Fafita for the run home. We've seen what he can do. The back row depth in Supercoach is solid. A few issues around a couple of players there, but Fafita, when he's on, and even when he's not on, he's still one of the best players in Supercoach, let alone the back row position. So in terms of super pods for the run home, he'll be owned by no one, effectively, or no active players. So yeah, I'm really be eyeing him off this weekend and maybe around sort of 18, 19 purchase.
Yeah. The Panthers, they take on the Chooks at 8 o'clock Friday night. Penrith, they are 1 to 17. I received another 14 questions. Do I sell Isaac Tungo this week? I reckon I've got it every single week. The last 12. It's been insane. Penrith, 1 to 17. They're bloody good. Nothing changes there. For the Chooks, though, Victor Radley, he returns at 13. A little bit earlier than what the Roosters, NRL, everyone was reporting. I think the original was like 18, 19 around that mark. He was named in the Origin squad. It looks like he'll be fine to play this weekend. Does send Nat Butcher back to the bench. We knew that this was always going to happen. It was a matter of when. It probably has come a little bit earlier than what we anticipated. If anyone's still holding Butcher, this is the week to let him go, yeah?
That's it, mate. Yeah, 463k. So he's come in, done a really good job for those who did jump on, made a bit of cash, break even 77. So now off the bench there, and as you said, Radley back. I think time to go for Nat Butcher.
Hopefully we do see Radley this weekend. He obviously, his weapon of choice on the weekend was the air hand job. So fingers crossed we do see him. What a fucking ridiculous situation, right?
He's a loose unit.
Oh, I cannot. But anyway, mate, speaking of ridiculous situations, they've also signed Matt Lodge overnight. I think he is the sort of player that they need through the middle. He could be a real point of difference for the Chooks moving forward.
Well, they just haven't been obviously anywhere near as dominant in the middle as they have been in past years. Maybe that's because of an ageing forward pack that they've got there. Last year in particular, they had massive injury issues, so you let them off there. But this year, they're not quite there. If Lodge can come in, and he's going to benefit that middle. He's a very good footballer. What he does off the field, whatever, so be it. And all that situation with the Warriors. The fact is, the Roosters have got themselves a very good front rower. And if he can help dominate that middle a little bit more for them, what that back line can do off the back of it, it's exciting for Roosters fans and Supercoach as well. I know it's only one player, but it can be a big difference for a gun front rower, as we know.
Yeah. Peter O'Sullivan waves his magic wand again, gets him in a former POS club. Very interesting. All right, Saturday, 3 p.m, we've got the Bulldogs taking on the Sharkies, a game that 6 weeks ago you probably would have thought this is one that you give up the afternoon to go and spend with the missus. Happy to miss this one. But, mate, now with the way Canterbury are travelling, I think this one's going to be a cracker. Luke Thompson, he's still no sign of him. You told me before, still some HIA, concussion problems there. So Max King, he wins big minutes again. The character arc of Max King this season has been incredible, hasn't it? He has been up and down. I hate him. I love him. And at the moment, he's one of my favourite guys.
He's one of them ones where a cheapie you start with and you had all these plans to sell him after the first buy round. It happens year after year, blokes like this. And for whatever reason, be it injuries, suspensions, origin selections, rep selections, just find themselves in bigger minute roles. And it gets to the end of the season, around 25, and you've held him the whole year and you're going, what'd you get right and what'd you get wrong? I held Max King and he averaged 70 for the run home. It was just the perfect plug option in my side. So, look, I still have him on the chopping block on the basis that I'm looking at going a little bit harder at round 17 and someone needs to make way. But with a 3-round average of 65, he's playing a lot bigger minutes, anywhere from 55 to 65 at the moment. If he maintains that, you're like, well, who's better that you trade him out for? Because he might not have the upside of your Joe Tapneys and Papalitis, and you'd prefer them, but at the same time, he's not doing much wrong, is he?
Yeah, I also think like his minutes have been great the last few weeks. I feel like over the last 2 weeks, he probably hasn't offloaded as much as what he was earlier in the season too. So if he can like when we watched him live the other day, I didn't feel like he was offloading crazy like he was previously. So yeah, I've got him in my draft team, so I'm very, very biased.
And the other thing with King is I'm looking at players that I want to move on for round 17 targets, and he was one of them. But I'm sitting there and I've got Papali'i and Taumalolo in the front row, and I'm looking at front row targets to move King onto, and there isn't many that I really like. I don't really like Clemmer. Tapney's not a round 17 player. There's no one that I'm overly keen on. So while I do want to get rid of him, someone's going to have to emerge between now and round 17, which is 1 round's time, to justify doing that. So, yeah, we'll see. But he might be a long-term hold, Maxi.
Mate, they take on the Sharkies. And one thing to know with the Sharks, their side, on their bench, they got Tolman, Finucane, Wilton, Fafita. 4-forward bench, obviously, you got Connor Tracy and Trindle on the extended bench. Whether one of those guys comes in or not, they might choose to go the power game against this big Canterbury pack. If they do, does that hurt Cam McInnes for you?
Mate, I don't care about Cam McInnes. I'm an Andrew Fafita owner.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I've had him since round 1 and just been like, every time I haven't really wanted to get rid of him because he hasn't been worth anything, but he starts punching out a few 30s and 35s. So I'm going, geez, I'd take that in round 17. So I'm looking at that 4-4 bench going, gee, I'm glad he's on it. And I've looked into that bench in the past, just going, they have to bring a Tracy onto it or a Trindle or someone. But we've seen Fitzgibbon in the past go with the 4-forward bench. So maybe it does stay like that. As far as McInnes, I don't own McInnes, but I'm not overly keen on him. So last game was Dale Finucane's first game back prior to the rep round against the Titans. McInnes only played 50 minutes for 48 points. So in his last sort of 5 games, he's been all between 50 and 64 points, which is rock solid. The dual hooker second row, also very handy. But Finucane on his first game back played 35 odd minutes. That'll increase up to anywhere from sort of 50 to 60 in time as he gets his match fitness back. With a 4-forward bench, like how many minutes do we see McInnes getting going forward? Not that he's going to let you down on any given week, but if he's a 50-minute player, like there's no way I want him in my team as a bit of a 55 average plotter for the run home.
Yeah, and he's not the sort of guy you can rely on to score a try every 2 weeks.
Like I wouldn't be upset if I did own because he'll still be solid enough, but I wouldn't rush to buy him at this stage.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout. Okay, let's move to the next game, Saturday at 5:30. We've got the Cowboys taking on the Broncos. This one will be an absolute cracker for the Cows. Luciano Leilua, he is named on the bench. A really interesting guy moving forward. I'm more than happy for him to sit on the pine for a couple of weeks.
Well, there's minutes there, isn't there? Like between Lukey gone for the season, that's basically Luciano probably slots into a 50-minute role there, but he can play edge, he can play middle, which is so valuable for them. Nanai, Origin duties, Taumalo, big week minutes on the weekend. So, I mean, you'd need him starting, but there's probably only one injury away from him playing sort of pretty decent minutes. Then Ruben Cotter's out for, another 3 or 4 weeks. So, one to keep an eye on.
Tom Gilbert's leaving at the end of the season. Yeah. Leilua's going to be there next year, so there is a possibility there. It's worth noting Kyle Felt is on the extended bench. That probably won't impact many people, but it would cause a domino effect of Hamiso, I would assume, coming to the bench. Jakey dropping out of that side. Do you agree?
Which is fantastic news for Reece Robson owners. So, look, I think Robson's probably got that 80-minute role anyway, but there will be blowout games that the Cowboys on their form will have where they might be up by 20 with 30 minutes to go or whatever. And if Granville was there, he'd probably come on and play hooker to give Robson a spell. But if he's not there, Robson has to play 80. So I think you're right. I think that will be the domino effect. Felt in, Hammer to the bench, Granville out, which is great news for Robson.
Pretty handy, yeah. For the Broncos, Branko Lee, he holds his spot at left centre. Adam Reynolds returns as well. Payne Haas, he's a guy that seemingly is carrying about 14 injuries at the moment, but the Broncos still grinding him into the ground. He's been named again this week. And I've said it a few times, but I think we've nailed Payne Haas this year, haven't we?
We have, and I love it because early on in the year, he was my antipod when everyone went for him from early in the season. He came out and belted out a big first couple of weeks, and people saying, "Oh, you antipod him, you're an idiot." I'm sitting there going like, well, early days, and ever since, I mean, what is he now? Is he nearly sub 500k?
Yeah, he's 500k.
Has 500k, has these injury issues, averaging 63, 3-round average 48, 5-round average 51, and now you're sitting there going, well, the fact that he's been named, you probably don't want to sell him because back to sort of, if he gets back to normal minutes and fitness post-Origin, he's going to be a bloke you're going to want in your squad. But as a non-owner, I'm sitting there going, gee, it's nice not to have that issue.
Yeah. Lovely. 7:30, we have got the Rabbitohs take on the Eels on Saturday night. Latrell Mitchell back. Ilias retains his spot in the 7 after being hooked mid-game. Nikorima moves back to the bench. We've got a question about Latrell a little bit later, so we will get to him. For the Eels, IPAP on the edge, Matto at 13. Hopefully this is how they look moving forward, but there is an injury cloud around Ryan Madison, so that's one you're going to have to stay tuned on and keep an eye on team list. Makes it really tough because Matto, we'll talk about round 7 in a minute, but he was one of the guys I was looking at. He's one of the few genuine guns I see that I could have brought in. I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, well, more than looking at non-owners, it's like we've got, as you said, a genuine gun that you'd happily not just keep for the run home, but play in your 17 every week. And now just raised a little bit of question marks, doesn't it? That we're so scarce on genuine round 17 guns, and now that mystery around him. The beauty of it is we can sit back and watch him play this week, see his minutes, see how his body gets through it, make sure he doesn't get selected for Origin because, he's probably one injury away from going back in that side anyway, maybe 2. 117 break even, so he should be dropping some decent coin this week with a bit of luck. So we're all going to plan. He plays decent minutes this week and we get him next week for sub 650k. But if he does look a little hampered or plays fewer minutes, that's going to be a tough one next week.
Very tough. Round 16, Sunday afternoon, we've got the Warriors taking on the Tigers at 2 p.m. Warriors heading back. Personally, mate, I have absolutely loved all of the content coming out of the New Zealand Warriors this week. It's been great. Shout out to Surly, his podcast. You're going to have a look at that. He uploaded a video of the boys arriving back at Mount Smart. It was unreal. A couple of pictures of Sean Johnson just smiling. Haven't seen that in so long. Very excited for the Warriors. I hope it all works out for them. Now, Aitken, he has been named in the centres. Toe Harris in the second row, Curran at 13. The Aitken move, it does make sense. I think their edges have probably been the worst in the NRL over the last season, realistically. I hate it for SuperCoach-wise. It absolutely kills me. But you've got to understand that move for the Warriors.
I've been calling for it for a while, and as you said, I love Ewan Aitken in the back row. I think it's hopefully his position going forward, but you've already touched on it. The edges are so flimsy there, and they have been all season. You have to shore that up. And they've got a plethora of back rows there between Torhuj, Currans, Jack Murchie's playing some good footy. You feel so much better about that side with Aitken at centre just to strengthen the edge. SuperCoach-wise, it's got to be a dent to him, doesn't it? Because he's become so SuperCoach relevant in the last 12 or so months, or the back end of last season into this season, because of his massive base he's getting with some attacking upside. If he was at a good team, so no offence to the Warriors, but battling this year, obviously, and he was playing centre with attacking opportunities coming at him, you'd be like, all right, this can work, but I'm just concerned that there won't be enough attacking opportunities for him to score well.
If he was playing round 17, I could deal with it for 2 weeks
Definitely.
or so. I would be happy to take a punt. Like, I personally think the Warriors win this week. He's got Volkman inside him now, which I think will create more opportunities on that edge. But, if he's playing out in the centres long term, I think you have to cut ties. I know that I will be this week.
Your love for Volkman knows no bounds, does it?
Yeah, hey, when I back a young kid in, I back him in.
Have you got him in future immortal status yet? Or
No, not quite yet. He's not far off. He's not far off. He's definitely in my draft team, and I'm going to be heavily fucking relying on him. But anyway, now the Tigers, they obviously go over to New Zealand, having a pretty tough trot. At the moment, the Tigers, they seem to be the punching bag of most media at the moment. Jimmy the Jet returns at centre. Brooks, despite the rumours that he would be dropped for this game, he's been named at 6. New Brown is the only hooker in the team. He's at 9. Now, Dewey's on the bench again, so you would have to assume that when Dewey comes on, he will jump into 6, Brooks into 9. Is that how you see it playing out?
Yeah, I think so. In saying that, we were at the game the other week at Bankwest against the Doggies there, and when he first came on there, he came on in sort of a roaming lock kind of role. He was floating both sides of the field a little bit. There was then an injury to Stafford Toa and he shifted to centre. So initially there, he didn't, but there was all that talk of Luke Brooks getting dropped anyway. So we initially anticipated that is what would have happened with Dewey coming on in the halves, Brooks to hooker. And as you said, particularly with no hooker named on the bench, I think that'll have to be it. To ask New Brown to go 80, it'll be a big call, I think, with his lack of sort of first grade time this season. I can't wait to see Dewey back in action, and I hope it is at 5'8".
And mate, obviously when we were out there the other day, that 15, 20 minutes where he was just floating, he looked good.
Yeah,
I like the look of him there. So I'm assuming that the Brooks will go to 9. We'll see how it plays out. The other one is Big Stefano. Now, started the season pretty bang average. A new coach, Alex Twoll, potentially missing long term. They've got a debutant front rower on the bench. They've got Dewey on the bench. The debutant is a front rower too, so congratulations to him making his debut. But Stefano, he could become I picked him up last week and put him on my draft bench. I think he's a guy that, I'm not saying definitely, obviously, because he looked awful to start the season, but he's a guy that he could have a bit of impact in the back end of this season.
I like to think I've got my head around sort of most. Like I do team news for the Telegraph of a Monday morning and a late mail of a Thursday, so I've pretty well got my head around the teams between all this research. And it's not often the sort of too many things slip past my radar just because of the sheer amount of times I look into it. But sometimes, Guru, you just dangle these little cherries in front of me, and you've just found one that I hadn't even considered. And I just mentioned that I wanted to downgrade Maxi King, but Utica Mano, 314k, break even 55. I wish he had another week behind him, but as you said, Twoll looks long-term, possibly long-term, it's all concussion-based, but, you know, it could be Maxi King to him for close to 200k next week. I mean, it'll all depend how he comes back from injury, but he could be, like, last season, he averaged 52 points in 45 minutes, but the back end of that season playing big minutes, he was rock solid. Like, he was putting up keeper scores, so... Mate, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, obviously noticing Stefano's a very top 50 mindset sort of play, so I can understand you missing that one. But you have a look at his last year. I mean, his 5-round average on his run home was 65.
Yeah.
Like, he has got a try. He scored 2 tries in that run, to be fair. But he is a guy that can score very well. And in this Tiger side, I think they're looking for someone to really stand up. He could be the guy.
And the thing is, as far as a round 17 number comes, it may be coming a little bit too soon because he might play 25 minutes off the bench this week, say 25, 30. Then for round 17, he maybe plays 35 or something as he gets his fitness back, which might only equate to a 30 to 40 points in round 17. But you're still cashing in, say, a King or whatever for about 200k to allow you to do other trades. You know, even if you bank 40 points for round 17 for a bloke who you're getting seriously undervalued, mate, you've certainly got me thinking. He's now in my plans.
I'd love to see Freddie bring him into Origin camp next week. We know what that did last year. Could send him to a new fucking stratosphere. But yeah, one to watch there in a disappointing Tigers side. Dragons, Raiders, 4 p.m, your boys. Is this a must-win for both clubs, do you think?
Yeah, well, that battle for the top 8, that sort of 7th, 8th spots, every single week you look at it and go... Oh, you know, the Jags are no chance, the Raiders are no chance. Manly Seagulls, you know, sort of battling along there. But the more you look into it, even when they're losing games, you're like, they're never far off it, are they? So we talk about it with teams like the Sharks and that quite often. You don't have to be knocking off the Panthers and Storms and these big name teams to make the 8, but you've got to be winning games like this, don't you? So, as I said, with these two likely to be anywhere from sort of 2 to 4 points away from each other come round 25, it's a huge game for them.
Massive. I reckon there's a good chance whoever wins this game might play finals footy this year. It's one of those games as far as where they're both placed. It's going to be really important. For the Dragons, mate, is there anything doing here for you? I think Jack DeBellin's been in good form the last few weeks, but I don't think I could look at him realistically. Is there anything that interests you here on the Dragons side?
So little. I mean, Zach Lomax is the only one that you maybe have a bit of a look at, but I'm just not convinced by the Dragons at all, and that I just don't back them. They were awesome against the Bunnies, but can they back it up? We'll see. Zachy Lomax, it'd have to take a pretty special performance this week to consider buying him, which is possible, but I think most people's centre wings are pretty stacked. Then you factor in a few other players who are targets down the road. Not for me, but yeah, we'll see.
Let's move to the Canberra Raiders, your side. Another side that there isn't a heap of movement here. Chance has been named on the bench, which with a bench of Tom Starling, Chance, Sutton, Horsburgh, another win for Joey Tapine and Adam Elliott, owners as well, but Tapine in particular as an owner. This really excites me again.
Massive win for Taps, isn't it? A weird bench, especially when you're playing Starlo 30 minutes or whatever he is at the moment. Chance, who, it's hard to see Chance getting more than 20 or 30 minutes there back from injury. Whether they run out with that on game day, you sort of get sick of trying to predict what Sticky's going to do, don't you? It doesn't make sense to me, but we'll see what he runs out with. Particularly with two middles in Horsburgh and Sutto, which you need on a smaller bench, but they're not going to have massive minutes in them. Like if it was Harry or Naira on the bench, you go who can play middle and play 80. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel like Ricky has been probably more consistent than he ever has been the last 5 or 6 weeks with his forward back. Normally that's the nightmare, but then you look at that bench and just trying to work out what he's going to do with the nines. And where do you see Chance fitting in for the rest of the season?
I don't know. I think it all revolves around Xavier Savage's form. Kochic and Rapper, obviously the wingers, they're not going far. In saying that, Kochic can play centre if needed. He could replace Seb Chris, but he's so important for their yardage coming out of their end as well. So I like him there. I think it all comes down to Xavier Savage's form. Savage is so just hit and miss every single week. We see the flashy moments. We see the issues in his game being still so raw at NRL level. So if Savage comes out the next couple of weeks and kills it, he can start up that spot for the season. If he doesn't, and there are more of these rocks than there are diamonds, well, Chance will slot straight back in at fullback, won't he? So I think it all comes down, and Chance is so reliable, so it'll come down to what Savage is throwing up.
Yeah. I know it probably doesn't impact much, but fuck, it kills me to see Jersey 19, CHN. I just think he's so talented, especially Supercoach-wise. I always love him as a pot option. I mean, fuck, there must be some clubs trying to get his signature, surely. He's
such a gun. I was watching a reserve grade game of the Raiders at Redfern Oval about a month back, and he was just so much better than everyone on that field. And there was NRL talent on that field, enough of it there. He was just obliterating blokes. They couldn't tackle him. He'd offload every run. It was just, I'm with you, mate. And it's a good sign for the Raiders that they can't squeeze him in there, but far out.
No, he's a very talented footballer. All right, mate, let's get into some hot topics this week. The first one, Ryan Pappenhausen. He will return this week. He'll be at fullback for them. Well, we assume he'll be at fullback. Could see him come off the bench, but I think he'll probably start in the one. Whether he goal kicks or not, we will see. Now, we mentioned earlier, we spoke about Pappy a lot last week. So if you'd like to go back and have a listen to that deep analysis, go back to last week. That was recorded about 8 seconds before he got COVID. So plenty of chat there, but we'll go over it very quickly. Neither of us are buying him this week. I just don't see the point buying him this week. He'll be a little bit cheaper next week. He's coming back from injury. There's just so many reasons not to buy him this week. If you're desperate and you're trying to jump up big, maybe I can understand it, but still playing at Brookvale, potentially Munster could be out. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, let's say he does start at fullback this week. 930K, 144 break even, Manly at Manly. It's just, there are so many red flags towards it. Coming back from injury, coming off COVID, you don't know how much that's affected him. Not a chance I'm going near him. And while I really do want him for 17 and like if he comes back this week and scores 30 and there's more massive price drops coming, like my halves, and I touched on it last week, but basically anywhere in 5'8", halfback or fullback, I can get Pappy in. Cleary and Mam are going nowhere. Mam will go after round 17, but he's a great number next week. Munster and Walker, well, Munster, I'm pretty hesitant to sell him now that he's been named to play and it doesn't look too serious. Walker's playing 17. Hines and Teddy at fullback aren't going anywhere. So, as I said, there's definitely a world where I don't get Pappy for round 17, which will terrify me, but it'll just be a massive watch this weekend.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, Pappy. I know a lot of people that are going him this week. I don't know, just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, mate, round 17. We've sort of tiptoed around it for the last few weeks, mentioned it here and there. Our strategies are very different. As I said, I'm in front of you by 278 points. I'm confident that you wrangle in a lot of those points in round 17. My strategy, I've sort of been looking at it for the last 6 weeks going, I might do this, might do that. The closer we get, the more I can see less options that I genuinely want. Last week I was sitting here going, okay, Matto will be one now that he's been dropped from Origin. With him now with this rib injury floating around, I'll have to see how he goes this weekend. I'm probably going to make one trade this weekend. I think I'll go to Grant Anderson to free up some cash if he plays, which I'm pretty sure he will. But, mate, I'm looking at round 17 and, yeah, I'm going to give away some points, but I'm starting to think that I might be better off saving the trades for the run home. That's sort of my mindset. Where are you sitting on round 17? I mean, it's been a few weeks now where you keep telling me you're gonna make 4 trades, and I just keep sitting here going, fuck, I don't know what 4 trades you're going to make. As it gets closer, how are you feeling about it?
I'm still going hard at round 17, but it's obviously loosening with every day that passes on the lesser targets. And I said Matto throws a little bit more of a spanner in the works, his little rib injury. But as it stands, if I only make the Grant trade this week, so I did end up saving a trade before the rep round. I'm likely at this stage to save a trade this round. I'll probably just go hammer down to Grant Anderson. Which will free me up about 300k going into next week, and then would allow me, like I've still got, I've got 2 boosts left. So I think I can find 4 targets that I want next week, and going through a couple of them, we've got Matto being a massive one, Pappy being another, but as I said, barring injuries, origins, whatevers, I'm struggling to get him in, but you know, if Munster doesn't play this week, like, why would you need to play Munster this week, honestly, if you're Bellamy? We'll see what happens there. But if he doesn't play this week and then he won't play round 17, there's every chance he gets rested after Origin as well. So if he misses 3 weeks, I don't mind, provided you've got the trades up your sleeve, to trade him out and then get him back in after Origin. You know, if you're limited trade, sort of sub 10, don't even think about it, just hold him. Yep. But at 13 with 2 boosts, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. So maybe that's my ticket to him. A couple of others there, maybe a Ramian or a Katoa is a bit of a pod in the back line. I might not need to do enough now that I'm getting sort of Grant Anderson, or at this stage I am, provided he plays. But maybe someone like a Trent Peoples to free up a stack of cash. Don't mind Sevo. Jerome Hughes I really want, but for all the issues I just mentioned, very hard to get him in, and I know you're keen on him. So, yeah, as it stands, I'll probably use a trade this week, 3 to 4 next week, which will give me anywhere from sort of 13 to 14 next week.
Yeah, I'm very keen on Hughes. I don't know how I make it work. I think I'm going to have to make a decision for round 17 whether I go Hughes or Pappy.
Well, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It pretty much comes down to that.
Yeah, I'll need to fuck around with it a little bit to work out how on earth I'm going to do it, but I would love to have Hughesy. I just love watching him play at the moment. He's just something else, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And let's have a quick look at the Storm's run home. So, what do we got? It's round 16, Manly, tough. Sharkies round 17 without their players. That'll be tough, but he'll run the show. Raiders, Bunnies, Warriors,
Hines
Titans.
won't be there round 17, though, you got to remember.
True.
So,
you know what? There's every chance we do get Hines. So if Jackie Wyden, and we spoke about it in depth on the Bloke podcast on Monday, but if Jackie does miss the 17, like he'll be the 18, won't he? Which means we get Hines. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, that's fair, actually.
But one thing to note, head-to-head finals, rounds 21 to 24, Titans, this is the Storm's run, Titans, Panthers, Broncos, Roosters. Then for overall players, they finish the season against Parramatta. So really tough last 5 weeks, but... Yeah, he's
just on that topic as well, before we move off it, Do you think we get Sifatalakai back round 17?
Probably not.
You think he stays in the side?
Yeah, there's so many moving parts to that with what they want to do with Jack White, and whether, as I said, we chatted about it on Monday, but like, do they play Jack at centre? Do they bring Jack onto the bench as the utility? It's a little bit hard because Damien Cook's already there, but he can play a relatively similar role to Talakai. I know people say that's stupid. Talakai can play in the forwards more effectively than Jack, but Jack's a big boy. If he comes on and plays 25 in just an X-factor role roaming through the middle, he can do that. We know how much Freddie loves Jack White. And so, there's a chance we do get Seafa. If not Seafa, hopefully Nico Hines. One of them will take. Seafa would be better because everyone owns Nico, but we'll see, mate.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we'll get one of them back. I don't know which one it'll be. I'm with you. I hope it's Talakai, especially as Mulatalo owners. If we get Talakai back that week, that'll be it is against Melbourne though. But Melbourne's back 5 at the moment. It's not great.
Yeah.
So an interesting one, mate. Is there anything on round 17? Anything else you want to touch on, or can we move to head to head?
I'll tell you one that did crop up just a little bit, and I tend to get a little bit excited sometimes, particularly around this bye period when we're looking for an extra number. But Chris Lewis named to start on the edge for the Storm with Kafusi out. So Kafusi will obviously be out again next week due to Origin. 230k, edge for Melbourne. Not a bad spot to be. If he locks in a big minute role, Breakevens 43, so it'd probably be a 2-trade play to get him in for 17. Then you wouldn't really want him lingering around as an AE nightmare, but just one to keep an eye on this week.
My only thing I would say about him is to have a look and work out why Trent Learu isn't in this side. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's HIA, injury, whatever it is, but personally I think he's a little bit higher on the pecking order. And I mean, regardless, you're not going to bring in Chris Lewis this week.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd wait till next week. But just keep an eye on that situation, because personally, I think Lewis is under Trent realistically. But as we said, wait for round 17. You can see how that plays out. Mate, talk to us about head-to-head strategy for some people that have battled a little bit this year. I know a lot of my mates have already turned to head-to-head strategy for this year.
Yeah, mate. So we often, I think every SuperCoach podcast out there gets a little bit caught up in overall at times where there are so many head-to-head focused players. So just a quick little note on the strategy there and a few different things. So first things first is look at where you are at on the ladder. And if you're sort of top 4 there, you don't need to go hard at round 17. If you're battling away and you're outside the 8, you can go, all right, I need to win my round 17 clash. So go to round 17, look at who you're playing, count how many players you anticipate having, count how many players you anticipate them having. You might be up against someone that's stacked with round 17 numbers, in which case you go, I don't need to go near this round or targets for that. We just mentioned the lack of targets, so just avoid it. You might look at round 7 and go, all right, we're both sitting on about 8 or 9 players. I'm sitting 8th. I really need this win. So you might burn an extra couple of trades to get the win that week. And yeah, as I said before, if you're sort of top 4 and sitting comfortably, you don't need the win in round 17. Save the trades for the end of the season. But ultimately, as a head-to-head player, you need trades come head-to-head finals for that. As I mentioned, last year, head-to-head finals were rounds 22 to 25. A really good move by the people over at SuperCoach HQ to make head-to-head finals rounds 21 to 24. Because we had all the mass restings in round 25 and head-to-head grand finals get screwed over. With a bit of luck, that won't happen this year. So great move and credit where due to them. But yeah, like if you're going, even if you make finals, if you have no trades going into those rounds, you won't be lasting long. So bank on at least having sort of 4 trades going in the first week of finals to use throughout that finals campaign if you are lucky enough to go far enough.
Yep, fair shout. Should we get into some questions?
Let's do it, mate.
All right, first one comes from Ishan, who is a day one follower. I was actually looking through our chat the other day. He's been following me since SuperCoach Guru days, so about 5 years or so. So thank you for your support, mate. He says, is it too late for Tapane? I've obviously got him. You don't. What's your mindset on this one?
Poor old fella, following you for SuperCoach knowledge from Dave Dodd.
It's been fucking battling.
Finished top 100k, but he'll be sizzling this year, hopefully. Taps is killing me, I'll tell you that much. He's my own Raiders boy, but 5-round average 78, 3-round average 85.
No tries in that period,
No tries. 1 try assist this season, so it's like, we know he's got that upside. Dude's a weapon. So busting tackles, he's offloading, his minutes are creeping up there a little bit. Head-to-head players, yeah, sweet. You can move him onto him this week if you want. As a head-to-head player, I'm like, as my starting front row as being, who are we? Taumlolo and Isaiah Papali'i, I don't really need him. Like, yeah, I know he's got dual second row, front row, but then you look at back row and you go blokes like Angus Crichton, Cam Murray, Ryan Madison, so many guns available. I'm happy to bypass him unless he starts playing like 65, 70 minutes and just going berserk. As I said, head-to-head players, yeah, I think that's fine, but overall, I think I'll be waiting to around 18 if I was keen.
It is the other thing you consider. Last week, he only played 45 minutes. Granted, he pumped out 58 base stats, which is incredible. He did obviously have that try assist. He's just taking the piss last week, throwing two-man cutout balls.
Jeez, that was a hard watch because it was. I can't remember who missed the tackle, but it was horrific, and I'm sitting there, mate, you're just killing me.
When it happened, it was when I saw you at the train station, and you were watching it live, and I watched you from about 40 metres away go, fuck, freak out, and I thought, Tapanay's done something here. How good.
Kochik ran through, I think, Chuala.
Yeah.
And I was just like, mate.
Nightmare. How
Can't
good.
win them all.
Can't win them all. Be good to win a few more, though. Let's move to our next question from Hugh. What to do with Drinky? I am a Drinkwater owner. I was sitting here for a long time thinking he will be my ticket to Ryan Pappenhausen. My jury is out on Drinky. I don't know if I keep him or let him go. The run home isn't fantastic. I mean, he could be my ticket to Pappenhausen, but I have got other avenues to get to Pappy now. He could also be my ticket to Jerome Hughes potentially for next week, which is something I'm seriously considering. But Drinky could be a hold for the season.
He's one of them ones where I know I don't own him, and I've never been an owner, unfortunately, because he's killing it. But he's had this trial period over the last 4 weeks, basically since that round 13 that the Cowboys played, where you've gone, all right, let's test him, and we find out if he becomes a season-long keeper or not. And he's gone 119, 90, and then 50. We're sort of no clearer to working out whether he's a keeper. Well, I mean, he's averaging 73, so his dual position. Put it this way, as a non-owner, I hate not owning him. It terrifies me because he's a gun. The Cowboys are firing. What to do with him? Like, you've got a massive decision to make next week, don't you? And what can he do? Barring a sub-50 score this week, I don't think you're going to be any closer to making that decision.
No.
So
mate,
I don't know what you do.
He's only played 11 games this year. To have a 73 average from 11 games when one of those he got 12 in.
Against Penrith, where, any tough games down the track, you can sit him if you want to. So their run's pretty good. They have Penrith around 25 where there could be rested players anyway. They've got the Roosters in there, but, they're not overly inspiring at the moment. So they've got he has 3 tons to his name, 2 90s, and that's in 11 games this year. So,
yeah, actually, their draw's a bit better than what I thought it was. There is a good little run there. Fuck, he's tough. Because, as I said, he's played 11 games, 73 average. He had that 12 in there. And, yeah, he's had 300s, but his highest has been 119. It's not like he's got 170 in there that's pushing that average up. So, and, yeah, he scored a 50 against Manly last week. Obviously, being an owner in draft, classic, fucking everything imaginable. Watched him very closely. He had 1 try assist, which was of a kick. Outside of that, I think he was on 8 points at halftime. So the only real attacking stats he got was that 12 points of a try assist. Like, being a fullback in the top 4 team, you're going to get more than that each and every week.
And then if it helps, and this is a little speculative, but round 18, Cowboys play 2 days after Origin. I think they're the Friday 6 p.m. game. So there's every chance Val Holmes doesn't play. Drinky will kick goals. So I know it's only 1 game, but it all helps.
Yeah, I'm so glad I've got him, but he is a headache.
Yeah.
He's a headache.
Good headache.
Yeah. Gun to head, who would you rather have for the run home? Scott Drinkwater, Jerome Hughes?
Probably Scott Drinkwater, just because there's a lot of mouths to feed at Melbourne.
Yep.
And I've spoken about it before, and they can still all score well together. But Drinky's just such a focal point of that Cowboys attack, so probably Drinky. But But as I said, Hughes gets you around 17. So
there's going to be a lot of teams come the back end of the season that they're going to be watching the Penrith Panthers with Toto, May, Tungo, all on their side, potentially kick out as well, Cleary. And then they're going to also, there's going to be teams that are going to potentially have Munster, Hughes, Pappy, Grant as well.
And that's a good point. I think we had on the Playbook podcast last night Socceroos skipper Matty Ryan, and he made that exact point. He was talking about we're talking about Jerome Hughes and just stacking with that Storm spine and Penrith players. Well, what if they do mass rest late on in the season? You're just a shot duck. So it is one to keep in mind, isn't it?
I was a goalkeeper too, for pretty obvious reasons. Let's move to our next one. It comes from F. Woodcock. Says, Cody Walker to Hughes, currently ranked 180. We've already touched on Hughes a little bit. With a rank of 180, I don't mind this move. I'm not a Cody Walker owner. I haven't had him all season. You are. What do you think about this trade?
Yeah, and look, it's one that I could make as well, potentially. But Cody's just a guy. He's been pretty ordinary, but he's still scoring all right. I don't know, like the way he's playing, he's not a keeper, but he'd come out round 17 and go 130, find his form, Bunny's find a bit of mojo, and you're sitting there going, like, what have I done? Not only did I lose a keeper, but I lost a keeper in round 17. I don't have it in me to do it when he's playing next week, when we're all depleted for numbers. Not for me, but look, it could be like the big pod move that you do from that rank that sends you soaring. So high risk, but could be high return.
After having Cody Walker in my draft team last year, I think he's one of the more frustrating players. Like, he can have a really quiet game and score 40. Then the next week he can have 3 try assists, and you're like, beautiful. And you look, he scored 80. You're like, what the fuck? He played like, he's just one of those guys.
The other thing I'll say on him is Latrell back's going to help so much.
Yep.
Like, just their yardage, get him on the front foot from kick returns and all that. Really, really beneficial. So I'd like to see how Cody goes, and the whole bunnies in general with Latrell back. There's particularly, if we do get Latrell for round 17, that'll help all their contingent.
Yep, let's roll with the hot hand there from Luke Banks. Is Latrell worth a cop this week? What do you reckon?
Not a chance.
Not a chance? Even if you're desperate for ranks to try and make a play?
Well, firstly, there's every chance that he gets picked for Origin next week.
Yep.
630k, break even of 135, tough matchup against Parramatta. Bunny's just got towed up by the Dragons. Will he kick goals?
I think he will.
All right, so he'll kick goals. First game since round 5, a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Are you achieving that much by going early on him this week? To repay the faith, he'd basically have to go 100 plus and then not get picked for Origin and play next week. So I don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if he does play well, which you'll need him to, he is going to play Origin. So, fair shout. Not a guy that I'm
If he comes out and goes 100 plus, that means he's probably got a double and a couple of try assists, which means he then nearly definitely plays Origin. So it's counterproductive.
It is a bit of a lose-lose. Yeah, you make some good points there. Next one comes from Mitchie Day. What is happening with Schuster? Will he start at some point? The $1 million question. I'm hoping he doesn't for the next few weeks. We spoke about this on Monday. If in 3 or 4 weeks we can get, I think he's 200. I think he's 320 or something.
350 at the moment. Break even 80.
Well, mate, what did he score last week? Like 15 or something?
He wishes 4.
Fuck. So that's gonna. So mate, you could get him for 250k in. You get him for less in 4 weeks' time, depending on how he's used over the next few weeks. And we saw on the weekend playing for Samoa what he's capable. We know what he's capable of doing anyway. But he's a guy that. Like, he could be a genuine downgrade option in a few weeks' time. As you said the other week, your VC loophole is pretty overrated realistically. He could be a guy that you could get really cheap and just wait until he eventually does get that 80-minute spot. And if he doesn't, so be it.
Imagine going like a Kiraz or a Josh King or something to Schuster around 18 or 19, making 250k, then Schuster starts playing 80 minutes and averages 60 for the rest of the season. Like, he's such a big watch for post-Origin.
Could you see yourself potentially doing that with Kiraz?
I've sold Kiraz.
No, I just wanted to.
You arsehole.
I love that. All right, next question. We got Riley Sadia says, what to do if you're a Haas owner? We are not, thank God. A heap of injuries going on here. He's got to play Origin 3. And realistically, he's then got to go back to Brisbane. I don't know. Is this whole saga over with paying Haas up there at Brisbane? There's a lot of moving pieces here.
I don't really have an answer. It's probably a tentative hold for me, just in the sense that, look, we know he's a proven gun in the front row. He could come out post-Origin, fired up for the run home and average 75, 80 and just pump out big minutes and big scores. but he's also just carrying all these different injuries to both shoulders. He's had AC joint injuries, so you can see why people would sell. It's again another one. I'm just glad I'm not in that position.
It's tough though if you do, like, he's one of your guns that you've had all year. If you do sell him, you want to get another gun in, but you're going to have to pay an extra 150, 200K to get anyone that's decent.
Well, that's it. The value's not there at the moment, is it? So,
and like no one's putting their hand up saying, I'm a good option
if
here.
you're 657, you go, all right, I can cash him in for someone and make 200K or whatever, but you're not making money out of it, really.
Yeah.
Unless you get Utukamanu.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If Stefano kicks on over the next 2 or 3 weeks, which is a huge if, don't get us wrong, but that could be a play there. Next one comes from Dylan Earlturk, big fan of the show. Sends a question in just about every week. So thanks for your support, Dylan. Tohu Harris, hold or sell? Underwhelming, I think, would be a fair way to describe Tohu. I know he's still, coming back from injury. He took rep weekend off, obviously. But I don't know. I just look at him and I watch him play and I'm not sure if he's going to be the guy we hoped he was going to be. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, it's another example of just players coming back from ACLs. They just don't. He's not scoring that poorly. Like, he scored 37 in 30 minutes in his first game back. From there, he went in 70-plus minutes every game, 67 last week, but 56, 50, 47, 55, 58. Like, they're pretty solid scores. He's another who the value's gone out of a little bit, 490K. He's going to improve with every game back. Ideally, I think he can find his form and I'd be happy to hold on for a bit longer. But the fact that he doesn't play round 17, and we've just mentioned that we're just struggling to find targets to take out of our teams, and you've got Tohu sitting there going, oh, well, he could average 50 to 55 for the rest of the season. He's a bloke that I can get rid of and get in a gun second row forward for round 17. So, like a Maddo, for example, for a non-owner. Look, I'd be tempted to give him one more week and then move him on to a Madison or Barnett type next week, but he's not quite come back where we'd hoped.
Yeah. Speaking of the Warriors, and this is one for my team, we've got it up on the screen here. Can you see the little bold play I'm going for this weekend?
Volkman skipper.
He might be in my draft team going like a fucking bastard. Mate, Warriors returning back home. I think I'm going to play Jazz this week. I've got a feeling it might be one of those weeks he goes fucking berserk. I look at McInnes. If that Sharks bench is as I expect, I don't mind Jazz. He's very low ownership, which I understand.
I can't believe you're still a Jazz owner.
Yeah, it hasn't played out the way that I thought it would, but 61 last week. He came out and said this week that the Warriors will beat the Tigers this week, returning back home. Jazz either scores 65 to 70 or he gets knocked out in the second minute and scores 3 for me. But he's going to be my little pod play this week, Jazz.
Yeah, I'm just having a look. What's their bench look like in this one? Because that'll be the big factor for me. Here we are. So we've got Harris Tavita, beautiful, Bunty, Elias Katoa, Bailey, Sirenen.
I don't mind it.
Yeah. I mean, it's now or never, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't see him beating my team all that much longer.
He'd be fun. And as I said, he's a passionate bloke, Jazz. He'll be so
Mate, I just think
he's
going to go fucking berserk.
He could have 47 offloads, so... Yeah, no, I don't. Played 54 minutes last game as well. I don't know if can't remember if that was inflated by HIAs or anything elsewhere, but yeah, look, go for it.
Mate, should we have a look at captains this week?
Let's do
quickly? Obviously got Pappy on Thursday night. If you do have him, I think it's too much of a punt though for me. I'm looking forward to the Twitter updates of whether he's goal kicking in the warm-up or not. That'll be very exciting. Nathan Cleary takes on the Chooks. Roosters are at $5.50. It is out there at Bluebet. That's big odds. Cleary backing up from Origin. Is he a VC or a straight C for you this week?
Either or. At this stage, I'm looking at Cleary VC, Nico Hines C. It's a tough one. The Dogs, I don't know. I was going to say are they back, but they never really, for saying they're back, that'll be dating back to about 2014. So, but they've been fantastic the last 2 weeks. Belted the Tigers outfit, meh. The Para game was very impressive. I don't know. The other consideration, it's very wet in Sydney this weekend, which impacts both games. Look, Friday night, if it's wet out at Bluebet against the Roosters, that turns into a bit of a grind. Post-Origin, Cleary becomes a worry for me. I mentioned it on the potty last night for Playbook, but Nico scores substantially better with wet hair. It's fact. So, well, I don't know. What are you thinking?
I think the wet weather's going to play a role. I think I'll VC Cleary, and then I don't know. I'm not, mate. Just from being out there at Combat the other day watching Canterbury, I kind of think they've turned a bit of a corner. I think they're going to put on a good performance against the Sharks, who, let's call it spade a spade. The Sharks aren't going overly well. They're not the team they were 6 or 7 weeks ago, mate. The one that I don't mind, and it's obviously not an option for you, it is for me. Drinky in Townsville versus Brisbane. I think both those teams are going to be really up for that game. He's one that I will consider. If Cleary goes quiet, if I had to decide between Nico and Drinky, I'm seriously going to consider Scott Drinkwater. It's a pun.
I don't mind it in the dry, yeah.
The other option, another one that's not an option for you, which is great, Joey Tapine. There's the argument he's backing up from Rhett Brown, but the reality is that was last.
He's got an 8-day turnaround.
He's got an 8. So it's the same as playing.
I wouldn't do that. I'm so fixated on chasing the big ceiling skippers, even on a tough week. The idea of going taps for a solid 70 just bores the hell out of me, hey. So I'm chasing that 150 every day, so I'd be going drink water. Look, if you're going to win SuperCoach this year, I don't think Tap's getting 75 for you. I don't think Tap's getting 75 for you is the way to do it. I think you need to be ballsy and play, which we know you do. You're a ballsy man. Is go drinky, and then he comes in and gets 150, and all of a sudden you're sitting third.
Yeah.
That's in terms of the Drinky v Taps argument. I think I'll probably still go Nico, but yeah.
Yeah, I just reckon that Canterbury side, I think they have turned a corner to some extent. Could be wrong. Have been on a number of fucking times in the past. So see how we go. But if you had to put money on, what does Cleary score? What do you reckon against this Chook side?
Oh, look, he's so safe for his 80 to 100. I know he's gone lower, but I'd back him for, come out and go 90, which is good going.
What do you take as a VC then?
110,
do you take
personally, my entire squad's playing, so I'm probably going to have a shit 15 in there somewhere due to HIA or poor score, whatever.
Yeah. Wait, can you take a VC score?
As it stands, probably not.
Yeah, right.
Unless someone's ruled out or something, yeah. But say I can, and if someone's ruled out or whatever, which, to be honest, with a lot of Origin contingent, there's Munsters in there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure someone will be rested.
Munster plays first game.
Yeah, so that's stuffed.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of for other people, I'd probably want 120.
Yeah.
Minimum.
So if you can't VC, is it Cleary for you?
I'm still thinking Nico.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Very unconfirmed. But
I think I'll go VC, Nath, and then I'll see.
Yeah, and put it this way, I love a good radar monitor. So I'll be watching the weather all weekend, and if there's not a lot of rain around on Friday, that's dry at Bluebet, I'll probably just lock in Cleary. If it's pouring on Friday night and it's looking like maybe drying up, which it's not at this stage for Saturday, well, maybe I'll go the other way around. So,
and as it stands right now, your trades for this week, are you going to bring in Anderson or not?
I'm thinking Hammer to Anderson, provided he obviously starts.
Yeah, cool. And I think I'm going to go Ewan Aitken to Anderson. Obviously, assuming he starts, we're hoping that he will.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I'd be very scared if Pappenhausen's on the bench and then Anderson and Jeremiah are both there and we don't really know what the plan is. So I'm hoping Pappy just starts, Jeremiah dropped, Anderson on the wing, scores 4. Happy days.
Hopefully Pappy. Thankfully, for all those reasons, it is the first game. If Pappy was playing Sunday or even Saturday,
drama.
It would be chaos. Guys, thanks for joining us once again. We have got Matty the Waterboy here. He's prepping for the next show. Heads down, arse up stuff. Make sure you get out this week. Buy yourself a case of Bloke in a Bar. Got the mid-strength and the full-strength. 2 cracking drops. Best of luck with your SuperCoach this weekend. Like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff for us. Make sure you jump onto social media. Follow SuperCoach at SuperCoach Playbook 1. Rugby League Guru. If you're listening on Playbook, come to the Guru podcast. If you're listening on the Guru podcast, come to the Playbook podcast. You guys know the routine. Thanks for joining us once again, and we will see you next week.